So come back to your breath. Let the mind relax a bit. And then we will cultivate our motivation and begin the teaching. So let's cultivate our motivation. So our mind is something very powerful, and how that power is used depends on our motivation. Because our mind can motivate actions that benefit others and benefit ourselves. And the non-virtuous mind can motivate actions that destroy our own and others' happiness and that create the causes for future unhappiness. So instead of being so preoccupied with the external world and trying to control it, being able to manage our own mind, transform our motivations, steer our mind in a good direction, then all of this is something that we can do, and in doing so, create the causes for happiness for ourselves and others. But since we don't automatically know what's virtuous and what's non-virtuous, what to practice and what to abandon, then we listen to teachings. And specifically, we listen to the teachings given by the Tathagata, the Buddha. Because he has cleansed his mind of all impediments to seeing all phenomena directly. So we can trust his words. We can trust his guidance. And when listening to the Buddha's teachings, we should try and have a mental state similar to his, in the sense that the Buddha gave the teachings with the motivation of compassion. So we should listen to the teachings with the motivation of compassion, so that we use the teachings to improve the qualities of our body, speech, and mind, and to make a positive contribution to society, and to create the causes for to have the omniscient mind ourselves and be able to have great benefit, give great benefit to sentient beings. So that's our motivation for being together today. So we've been doing a whole series of talks about refuge, and what we started last week, or last month, I should say, we started talking about the 10 powers of the Tathagata. So sometimes, when we hear the 10 powers and we hear the characteristics of the Buddha, some people take to it easily and listen and have faith, and other people say, I don't know, how does this really work? Okay, because when we hear the qualities of a fully enlightened one, they're so beyond our abilities that we go, how is it possible that anybody actually attains that kind of mental state? It just doesn't seem realistic in some way. So that can be one problem we face in listening to teachings on refuge. Another is we listen to the characteristics of the Buddha and we say, well, yeah, that's a nice explanation, but how does that pertain to my Dharma practice? Okay, it just sounds, it's nice, but it's another list and I don't know what to do with it. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about those two difficulties before we get into the body of the teaching. Okay, so in terms of the first one, having the doubt that it's actually possible for anybody to have the kinds of qualities that we're talking about here. I think it's helpful to recall the teaching from last night for those of you who watched it. It was from Samsara, Nirvana, and Buddha Nature, and we were talking about the mind's potential. And His Holiness had said that the basic characteristic of the mind is that it can know objects, and what keeps it from knowing objects. Why can't we know everything if our mind has the ability to know everything? Because there's certain impediments. So some of the impediments are physical, some have to do with our sense faculty not working properly, some have to do with being full of all sorts of ideas and distractions so that we can't steer our mind in the right direction. Some have to do with the object being too far away or too subtle, so our sense faculties aren't able to know it. And then another big hindrance, of course, is, uh, you know, the karma on our mind stream, the latencies of the afflictions, all these different kind of defilements and pollution that obscure the mind, so that, even though there's the possibility to know things, we can't know them. Okay, so if you think about that, I don't know about you, but that makes sense to me. Okay, the nature of the mind can know objects. That's just like the nature of fire is hot. Okay, the nature of the mind is to know objects. And so then, why can't we know things? Well, there's some kind of impediment. And when His Holiness started talking about those impediments, I could recognize that I have some of them. Yeah, I can't see on the other side of the wall, and I can't see things that are far away, and my hearing isn't so great, so I can't hear some things. And I know if I get really, my mind starts going round and round about something, then I can't take anything in. I can't think about anything. The mind's just too confused at that moment. So that, gives me some kind of feeling of, okay, that explanation that His Holiness gave, I can see the obscurations in my own mind. That makes sense. Yeah. And so let's just go on and see, what happens as when I try to overcome different obscurations, and if my mind is clear and can know things more easily. Yeah. And so we do experience that from time to time, don't we? You may have been meditating on something for a while and it's a big puzzle. And then, kind of in one session, something clears and it's like, oh, I got it now. Yeah. So I think we've all had that experience at one time or another. Yeah. Oh, so the mind can change. The obscuration can go away, at least temporarily, maybe not forever and ever, but at least temporarily. And if it can go away temporarily, if I really practice well and become very familiar with the antidotes, then maybe that obscuration can go away once and for all so that it never comes back. Okay, so thinking like that, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is possible. Okay, then the question comes, well, it just sounds like an intellectual list. How do I make that something, that is interesting, that inspires me. Um, And I really saw sometimes when I was doing the philosophical studies that sometimes for the Westerners, this question would come up a lot, and they would lose interest in those kind of studies because there was no explanation about how to meditate on the information that they were learning. Okay, so we have to uh, eventually develop the ability to write the meditation outlines ourselves for whatever we learn, so that we know how, we can figure out how to meditate on them. But in terms of refuge, here are a few tips of how to do it. Okay, one is um, when you take refuge, yeah, then we, before taking refuge in any of our sadhana practices or any practice we do, yeah, then it's good to think about the causes for taking refuge. So, one of the causes is concern about our future lives. Another cause is having confidence in the Buddha and the teachings. And then a third cause for Mahayana practitioners is compassion. Okay, if we go back to the second cause, having confidence in the Buddha's ability, then, before you take refuge, if you're thinking about the qualities of a Buddha, and and then you think, oh, if it's possible to have that quality, if somebody has that quality, then that could be someone that I could trust. Because if they're teaching me, they know what they're talking about. If they're trying to guide me, they've had experience in guiding many different kinds of people. If they have compassion and a kind heart, then I know they're not just going to use me or, make up some strange path to play, to do a prank or something like that. So, if you think about those qualities and then that, oh, this is the quality of somebody who I can trust to guide me. And being able to trust our guides is very, very important. I mean, trust is a huge thing in our human relationships, because if we don't know somebody's qualities, or if we have the wrong idea about what their qualities are, then we can't trust them, and we can wind up having big problems with them. Okay, so when you're learning about these qualities of the Buddha and thinking about them, then it can reinforce that feeling of trust in the Buddha's ability to guide us, because he actually knows the path through his own experience. Okay, so if you think about the different qualities of the Buddha in that way, how you benefit from the Buddha having that quality, then it makes more sense, and you get some feeling from meditating on the qualities of the Buddha. Okay, does this make some sense to you? Yeah. Then another way to use this in your meditation is to think, not only am I focusing on the qualities of the Buddha, but I'm also learning about the qualities that I have the potential to develop when I actually put the teachings into practice and take them seriously and try and transform my mind. Okay, so this isn't just about the Buddha's qualities. I'm meditating also on my potential, what I have the potential to develop. Okay, and then that gives us some, it's uplifting, and we want to learn the teachings and we want to put them into practice, because we have a feeling of, oh, the Buddha started out just like me, the confused mess, and he practiced the path and wound up as a Buddha. If I do the same, then I can gain the same qualities that he has. And then that helps us when we approach our Dharma practice to have some enthusiasm for doing it, because we have some knowledge of the kind of results that can come from it. Okay? So, remember these so that when you do the meditations on the qualities of the three jewels, it comes alive for you. Okay? So some people are more faith-based. Some people are more analytical. Okay? So very often the people who are faith-based, when they hear of the amazing qualities of the Buddha, they don't question, they just go, this is marvelous, I believe, okay? Then there's others of us, who go, well, how is that possible. Okay, so I was really struck by your question last night. When we were discussing about how at Buddhahood the different sense consciousnesses can be cross-functional. I mean, that's a really good question, because in our ordinary form, they aren't cross-functional. My consciousness can't taste cookies, okay? And my gustatory consciousness can't see the plums, yeah, because they just have different, purviews. So how is it with the Buddha that they're cross-functional? Okay, so this kind of questioning is very good, because it makes us think about the teachings and how could this possibly come about. Okay, and so Geshe-la, clearly had thought about that, and he pointed, oh, the explanation is in the tantric teachings, and that makes perfect sense, because in the sutra teachings, I don't know about you, but I've never heard an explanation about how that works. Okay, but if I think, I don't know the tantric teachings real well, but the little I know about how the winds function and the extremely subtle mind, it's like, okay, yeah, there can be something that happened with the energy winds and the extremely subtle mind, so that these different consciousnesses are cross-functional. Okay, I can't tell you how, I don't know the whole process, but it's, I bet something could happen with those things that would explain it. Okay, so how am I going to learn the whole process? Well, I go to somebody who knows more than me and ask a question. Okay. Okay, so that is just a little bit of an introduction here about how to listen to the teachings about the qualities of the Buddhas. Okay, any questions about this so far, or comments?
There was one question in the chat, Venerable.
Okay.
The person has actually dropped out, but other people might find it useful.
Okay.
What is meant by making our own meditation outline, and how can we do that?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Okay. So you'll see, first of all, there's already made meditation outlines. When you study a text, they very often have a very detailed outline of the topics and the topic of each verse or the topic of each section. And so you can write those out, and then, when you meditate, you review, what the text said or what the Lama said about that particular topic. There's also Venerable Thubten has a book on how to meditate. There's some guided meditations in there. I did a book, Guided Buddhist Meditations. Yeah, and there's some outlines there for these kind of meditations. So we often make the outlines for people so that when you start to do these meditations, you have something ready-made and you understand how to do these analytic meditations. But then after a while, when you hear a teaching, you can jot down, the major points. And then after that, when you sit to meditate, go over those points and think about them and how they relate to each other, and how they relate to other topics in the Lamrim and so on. Okay, so you can start to make your own outlines. Okay? Did you have no other questions so far? Okay, then we'll continue. So last time, we started on going through the 10 powers of the Tathagata, okay? And these 10 powers are listed both in the Pali Sutras and also in the Sanskrit Sutras. The description of these 10 powers of the Buddha are very similar in both Pali and Sanskrit, although sometimes there's some divergency. The Sanskrit tradition adds a little bit more, or the Pali tradition looks at it in a different way, something like that. Okay, so just to review, because we talked about two of them last time, and then now we would be starting on the third one. So the first one was the Tathagata understands as it actually is, the possible as possible, and the impossible as impossible. Okay, so that's referring to that the Buddha knows that harmful actions lead to dukkha, virtuous actions lead to happiness. Okay, he knows that that's possible. He knows that it's impossible for non-virtuous actions to lead to happiness. Oh, think about that one for a while. Okay, yeah, the Buddha knows that non-virtue doesn't lead to happiness. How come I think my non-virtuous actions are going to lead to happiness? Yeah. Do you sometimes think your non-virtuous actions will make you happy? Yeah. Yeah. If I needle this person and bug them enough, then I got you, I paid you back. Or maybe if we cheat somebody and don't pay them the full amount for whatever it is, then we feel, oh, good, I got a good deal out of this. Yeah. In both instances, we created negative karma, but we never thought twice about it because at that very moment we got some worldly benefit. Yeah. So, I think my negative actions can lead to happiness sometimes. But, a quality of the Buddha is that non-virtue never leads to happiness. That means I'm thinking in the exact opposite way of how the Buddha looks at things. Okay, is that going to be good for me? Is that wise? Yeah, no, it's not so wise. And plus, actually, if I sit down and think about it more objectively, what the Buddha said that virtue leads to happiness and it never leads to unhappiness, and non-virtue always leads to unhappiness, never happiness. Actually, if I think about it, that actually makes more sense than what I believe. Why do I believe something that is distorted like this? Well, it could be my ignorance, and it could be that I like to rewrite the rules so that I can do what I want to do. Okay. Now, the Buddha didn't make the rule that, cheating somebody creates non-virtue and leads to unhappiness. He didn't create that rule. He just described cause and effect, that creating that kind of cause leads to that kind of effect. And when I think about it, it actually makes more sense than what I believe. But, yeah, the famous yes, but my self-centeredness doesn't always like to go along with what the Buddha says, because that means that sometimes I can't get what I want. Yeah. You ever have that problem? Yeah. If I follow the Buddha's instruction, I can't get what I want. So I'll just twist it so that non-virtue leads to happiness, because that's my experience. Yeah. When I take revenge on people who harm me, I feel so happy. What kind of person does that make me to feel happy when I cause other people suffering? Well, we won't look at that. We'll just we'll skip over that because I want to get my way, and I want to think I'm a good person. So we'll just ignore that kind of stuff. Okay. So yeah, this is when we really have to practice. Okay. So that was the first of the 10. The second one is the Tathagata understands as it actually is the ways leading. No, I'm sorry, I skipped. The Tathagata understands as it actually is the results of actions undertaken, past, present, and future, with possibilities and with causes. Okay, so the Buddha fully and accurately knows all the intricacies of karma. Okay, and as we found so often in the teachings, when we try and understand all the details about karma, it's rather complex. Yeah. And especially if we consider that we're all individuals and we want to know, if we wanted to know exactly what we did 5,000 eons ago to bring about the present result, we can't really grasp that. Yeah. But this is, the Buddha understands these kinds of intricacies of karma. Yeah. And when we read different texts, different texts will describe these kinds of things. If you do this, this is the kind of result. If you do that, that's the kind of result. Everybody's so interested in that screen. Maybe I better look there too. Nobody's following the book. Nobody's looking at the speaker. They're all looking at the screen. Yeah, maybe we should turn that screen off. I can still see them here, and I look at them, but oh, okay. Look, yeah, yeah. Everybody looking. You're all looking at the screen. Very good. Okay, I hope you're getting a lot out of the teaching that way. Mm-hmm. Maybe next time. Yes, that's good. Yeah, but I can still see them. You can still hear, right? In Australia. Good. Okay. So now, sorry, folks, you have to look at me. I know looking at all the folks in Australia is much more interesting than looking at me, but sorry, you can look at His Holiness over there instead. Yeah, you can fall asleep if you want to. Yeah, some of you may be tired. Okay, then the third quality. So this is where we're actually starting. So the third power of the Buddha, the Tathagata understands as it actually is the ways leading to all destinations. So here, destinations refers to all the possible rebirths, okay, in all the different realms. So he knows what kind of causes people create to be born in the human realm, in the Deva realm, in the Asura realm, in the hell realm, in the hungry ghost realm, in the animal realm. So the Buddha knows what those causes are. So that's, it's good for us to rely on somebody who knows what those causes are, who can tell us, so that then we can avoid creating those causes. Okay. And usually when, the Buddha talks about causes and effects, it makes some sense. We can link the cause and the effect. Yeah? It may not be a a perfect match, but we can see, for example, the environmental results. Yeah, if you lie, it creates the cause to be born in an environment where, what was it? Um, there's a lot of thorns and sharp things. This is also uh, if you have harsh speech, yeah, you're born in a place where lots of thorns and jagged rocks and things, to step on and trip over and so on. Now, when you think about lying or harsh speech, yeah, that makes sense that you would be born in that kind of environment, doesn't it? Yeah, you wouldn't be born in some place with smooth land, yeah, where everything flows well. Because lying, harsh words, it harms. The words are like daggers sometimes. Okay, so it creates the cause for that to be born in that kind of environment. Okay, so we can see some kind of links between different causes and effects. And then that helps us um, develop the intention not to create those causes because we don't want to be born with those effects. Mm. Similarly, with calling people names. Yeah. And I mention this because this is the latest thing in America. Australia, I think, is a little bit more civilized. Yeah. But America now, I mean, the biggest thing is call people names. Yeah. Doesn't matter who they are, call them names. Make up lies about them and put it on social media. Okay. So this is just going on. It's true, isn't it? Yeah, this is what's happening. So, yeah, but when we really think, oh, okay, well, what are the results of acting like that? Calling people names. Well, yeah, one of the results is that we become like the name we're calling people. So if you say, what are you, blind or something? It helps to create the cause to be born blind. Yeah. Oh, somebody's a cripple. It creates the cause to be born with a handicap. Okay, so if we remember the results, again, it makes us sit up straight and watch our speech, that we don't insult people by calling them these kinds of names. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing how, remember being in kindergarten and as a little kid and how there were always, kids taunting one another and calling each other names. And, there's the certain names, each grade you had different names that were the most popular to call other kids. Yeah, where did we learn this? Actually, we learned it from the older kids, didn't we? Yeah, you listen to elder brothers and sisters, yeah, who call those names, then you start calling those names. Oh, very intelligent. Hmm. Yeah, I'm sarcastic here. Okay, but yeah, it makes so really thinking about the results makes us more aware of our behavior and makes us more conscious and conscientious to make good choices. Okay, then the fourth power of the Tathagata. The Tathagata understands as it actually is the world with its many different elements. Okay, so if you've studied the philosophy sometimes, you've heard about the 8 constituents, the 6 elements, the 6 outer sources, the 6 inner sources, the 12 links of dependent arising, the 22 faculties, all these kinds of things. So these are the kinds of things that the Buddha understands what they are. Okay. Now, if you look and you're hearing these things and you're scratching your head and like, what in the world are these things and how do they fit together? Well, what's interesting is when you suffer from pride and arrogance, this is the topic you meditate on because it's so hard to understand that it lowers your arrogance. Okay, so, then we can think of, oh, but the Buddha understands this perfectly. So that's, that's something good, something we don't understand, but we can learn from the Buddha. Then the fifth one is the Tathagata understands as it actually is how beings have different inclinations. Okay, different inclinations. So we're not all the same, are we? Yeah, we in some ways we human beings are all the same. In other ways, we are very, very different one from another. Okay, so sentient beings have different inclinations. Here, inclinations means interests, okay? So some people may have inferior inclinations, which means that they have a lot of interest, a lot of aspiration for worldly things. Other people have different inclinations and they have interest and aspiration to learn about Buddhahood, for example, or to learn about the steps in generating bodhicitta, for example. Okay, so if the Buddha is going to teach different people according to their own inclinations, then he has to be able to know what those inclinations are and what to teach according to each inclination. Okay, so it's kind of it's like if you're a school teacher. Okay, so you want to teach kids how to read. Well, the best way to do it is to have the reading material be something that the children are interested in. If the reading material is boring, they're not going to read it, they're not going to learn how to read. Okay. I think this is one reason why there's so many kids' books about dinosaurs. Yeah, kids love dinosaurs. These huge creatures. Yeah. So if the teacher talks about dinosaurs and has a whole workstation involving dinosaurs, then the kids will go there and they'll not only learn about dinosaurs, but they may learn some math and they'll learn some new vocabulary words and they may learn a little bit of art as they try and draw the dinosaurs. Of course, I grew up in the generation of the dinosaurs, but I don't know nowadays what kids gravitate towards. Yeah, somebody wrote after the teaching I gave on Thursday about from Shantideva about the body, and I started talking about, how we are conditioned as men and women. Somebody wrote and said, that was such an, what was the word they used? What? Outdated. It was such an outdated way of talking about it. Yeah. And the updated way was talking about porn. Yeah. And if I wanted to talk about how young men are conditioned now, I should talk about porn. Well, I'm afraid that's not a subject I'm real knowledgeable about. Okay? And it's not one that I can say porn and then I'll leave it to your imagination. Okay? But yeah, so I'm suggesting dinosaurs because when I taught school, that's what the kids like to hear about now. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they want to hear about Italian spaceships that can cause floods. Yeah, that's one of the latest conspiracy theories. Okay. Um, Dinosaurs are still big. Yeah, yeah, they're still pop. Yeah, because when people offer box cereal, they still have the little plastic dinosaurs in them. So unless the cereal's really stale, dinosaurs are still in. Okay, but I don't know. Maybe they want us to have movie stars, or I don't know. So much of this is boring, but uh, but the idea is that just as a teacher has to teach according to what the kids are interested in, then the Buddha has to guide sentient beings on the path according to their inclinations and their interests. Yeah. And that makes sense. And you have to know what people's inclinations are and what they're interested in. And some people love philosophy and some people don't. And some people love chanting mantra and some people don't. So there's so many different practices, yeah, so that the Buddha can teach somebody something that resonates with them. Okay, so that was number 5. Now number 6, the Tathagata understands as it actually is the disposition of the faculties of other beings. Okay, so here the word faculty can mean many different things in different situations. Here it's referring to the 5 faculties. Okay, faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Okay, so when we talk about the 37 harmonies with enlightenment, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, they're these 5. Okay, so faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So the Buddha can look or knows in each individual person's mind the strength of these different kind of faculties. Okay, so like I said before, some people are very faith-based. The faculty of faith or trust or confidence is very strong in them. And so to those people, the Buddha might teach more devotional practices. Okay. For other people, the people who are inquisitive and ask a lot of questions, then the Buddha is going to talk about, some kind of topic where you can analyze using reasoning and logic to try and understand it. Yeah. So knowing, people, the strength of the different faculties. For somebody like the faculty of effort, if somebody is low on effort, then the Buddha may teach the practice of rejoicing because that doesn't take a lot of effort. You can just sit there and rejoice at other people's virtue and good qualities. So it doesn't take a lot of physical effort. But if you're an angry person, rejoicing at other people's virtue takes a lot of effort because you don't want to do it. Okay? So the Buddha will know these kinds of things, yeah? If it's somebody who likes concentration practice, then he'll teach something like that, yeah? Um, but if it's somebody who, is more interested in some other topic, in Abhidharma, let's say, then he'll teach Abhidharma. Okay. And so that this kind of ability to know where sentient beings are at, this is what really makes the Buddha a very great teacher, because he can fine tune the different teachings according to the audience. And you see that when you start to read. For example, if you read any of the Pali Sutras, because they'll talk about the Buddha talking to different groups of people. And sometimes he will be talking to other Buddhist monks. Sometimes he'll be talking to Jains, other time Brahmins, other time non-Buddhist ascetics. And you can watch how he'll talk about different topics according to the audience he's talking about, and how he's able to really get through to people that way because he has that kind of sensitivity to where they're at and so can address their concerns. For example, there's the Kamala Sutra, where this tells the story about the Kamala people, and they had a variety of different spiritual leaders coming to their community, giving different teachings. And the people would listen to one teaching and say, "Oh, that's good." But then the next teacher came a week later and taught something else. And then, well, we should practice that. And then the next teacher came and taught another thing. So they were just really confused. What do we practice? Okay, we don't know what to practice. So they invited the Buddha to come. So the Buddha came and he was able to tell, what was going on, that all these people are confused because they're hearing different teachings from different teachers, and some of them are contradictory, and they don't know who to believe and what to practice. Okay, so when he came in, what did the Buddha teach? He taught this the episico, it's episico. Anyway, this word that sounds kind of like like that word. Okay, so, but what that word means, episico, is come and see. So he taught the Kamala people. He didn't tell them, "Oh, believe this guru, don't believe that one." He said, "Come, listen, and you're smart people, think about it and check it out. And if it makes sense, practice it. And if it doesn't make sense, leave it." So that's really skillful, because it's not so skillful to go in after they've had different teachers and say, "Oh, that teacher, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a jerk. And that spiritual leader over there also doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't listen to him." It's not so skillful to go someplace and start criticizing other people's spiritual teachers, It's more skillful. Tell them to think about it, to use their intelligence, to come and see with an open mind, and then make up your own mind what you think. So that's an example of the Buddha's skillful means, which came about because he has this ability to know the disposition of the faculties of the different people in the audience. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was 6. So 7. The Tathagata understands as it actually is the defilement, cleansing, and emergence in regard to the meditative stabilizations, liberations, concentrations, and meditative absorptions. Okay, so this is talking about different meditative states. Yeah. And so, in getting into these various different meditative states, there can be different defilements that act as hindrances. Okay, so for example, some of the universal defilements that really inhibit developing concentration are sensual desire, because our mind is always going to pleasant sense objects. Yeah, malice, because we get distracted by thinking about this person did this and that person did that, and I want to get even. Okay, drowsiness, lethargy. That's a yeah. These are universal problems. Okay. Um, uh, okay. What else? Restlessness. Yeah. Agitation. The mind is it's restless and full of regret. Oh, I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that. Why didn't I do this? Why did I do that? Okay, that kind of mind. And then also doubt. What are these teachings right? Am I doing the practice right? Do I really have the ability to develop concentration? Yeah. So there's some general, you know, um, really big ticket hindrances that the Buddha spoke of. But then when he got into the more refined levels of meditative concentration, there were, more refined obstacles. Okay. Yeah, there's a list of the 10, what did they call them? The 10 imperfections, I think. So, that can, when you're trying to develop concentration. For example, like having very unusual experiences when you're developing concentration, and then getting kind of proud of them and making them into an ego thing. Ooh, I had a vision of Tara. That was good. Ooh, I, you know, I heard the divinely inspired instructions. Yeah. So, and then people making these things into very concrete items. So that becomes a hindrance. But, maybe not when you're doing breathing meditation so that you can try and concentrate for 10 seconds, but they certainly become hindrances later on in developing different stages of samadhi. Okay, so the Buddha knows what these defilements are, okay, that keep meditators from entering into these different meditative states, or once having entered into them, being able to maintain that meditative state. Yeah, because just because you can enter into, the third dhyana, for example, doesn't mean that you can stay there for as long as you want. Okay, and so that's the defilement. Then he knows the cleansing, so the method to remove those particular hindrances and defilements. And he knows emergence, which is how to come out of a meditative state. So not just how to get into the meditative state, how to maintain it, but how to come out of it. Yeah. Because how you come out of a meditative state is really going to influence what you do too. If you are able to come out in a gentle way, or if your alarm clock goes, of course, if you're in deep concentration, you're not going to hear the alarm. But these kinds of things can influence. Okay, so here, when they're talking about these different states, they're talking about the 8 liberations, which are states of meditative absorption. Then there's a category called the 9 serial absorptions, which are made of the 5 dhyani states and the 4 dhyanas and the 4 formless absorptions. And then there's a 9th one called the cessation of discrimination and feeling. Okay, when you are so concentrated that there's no feeling and no discrimination. You can't develop wisdom in that state. Yeah, but it does provide a break for some meditators. Yeah. Okay. What else? Oh, and then, so he describes all those kind of states, how to enter, how to maintain them, how to exit them. And so he can teach and guide us how to develop those kinds of things. Yeah. And if you want to develop deep states of concentration, you really need a teacher, and you need a teacher who knows all the ins and outs of that. Nowadays, I meet all sorts of young people. It's like, I pick up a book, and the book says, gives instructions for how to develop samadhi, and a person, tries that from the book, and then, sometimes they get into pretty strange states, or sometimes nothing happens at all. Because they haven't learned the proper technique. Okay, so and so the Buddha also knows what's called the thoroughly afflicted, and the completely pure. So in this context, the thoroughly afflicted is having attachment to these deep states of samadhi. Okay, and the completely pure is having the mind being free from this kind of attachment. So the Buddha knows the difference between those. Okay, then number 8. Here the sutra passage is a little bit longer. I'll read the whole thing. So the Tathagata recollects his manifold past lives. That is 1 birth, 2 births, 3 births, 4 births, 5 births, 10 births, 20 births, 30 births, 40 births, 50 births, 100 births, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, many eons of world contraction, many eons of world expansion, many eons of world contraction and expansion. So in all of those different times, the lengths of times, the Buddha knows his previous rebirth and is able to say, there I was named so-and-so from such and such a family or clan. This was my appearance. This was the kind of food I ate, the nutriment I took. This was my experience of pleasure and pain. This was my lifespan. This was my passing away from that life. Then I appeared in some other realm. And there too I was named so-and-so of a certain family and clan with such an appearance, such nutriments, such experience of pleasure and pain. This was my lifespan and passing away, and then I got reborn here. Okay, so all these details about his previous lives. Okay, so thus, with their aspects and particulars, he recollects his manifold past lives. That is a pretty astounding ability, don't you think? Yeah. Now, if you could, let's say you had the ability to remember your past lives, how would that affect your Dharma practice if you have wisdom and you're looking at your past lives properly? How would that affect it? Yeah, your renunciation of samsara would increase dramatically. Why?
Because we'd see very clearly the meaninglessness of just chasing after the pleasures of this life, because we see how we've done the same thing many, many, many times before and it's gotten us nowhere. And to see that even if in this life we've been fortunate perhaps, in past lives we've experienced a lot of pain, and then we can project, well, that this is just going to continue, and just to see the repeat of birth, aging, sickness, death, not getting what we want, being separated from what we want. It's just the manifold sufferings.
Yeah. It's just going around on the merry-go-round and it doesn't shut off. Yeah. Would it be easy to have that, to see that? Mm-mm. You would need a lot of merit, I think, to be able to see our not only concentration ability, but a lot of merit to be able to see it and handle it. Yeah. I spoke, one man came to me one time, and he had done some kind of past life regression. So sometimes those things are valid and sometimes they aren't. But in any case, he had the experience of remembering murdering somebody in a past life. And it was horrible. It was horrible for him to think that he had done that in a previous life. It really shook him. Yeah. So it made me think, people love to do past life regression, but you better be able to handle it. Everybody wants to think they're Cleopatra. Yeah, there's so many people who remember having a past life as Cleopatra. Yeah, but I haven't read any accounts of people who remember being Cleopatra's slave. But I imagine that there were much more slaves of Cleopatra than the one Cleopatra, many slaves, but more people remember being her and not the slave. Yeah. So this kind of thing, you have to have some wise guidance in it. Yeah. Okay, but in terms of the Buddha, if we think the Buddha has this ability to know these things, yeah, then, yeah, if he can, in terms of how that helps him lead us on the path, then he will know, which teachers to direct us towards, because we have some kind of karmic connection with them from the past. Yeah, and he would know the kinds of things that we had meditated on in the past, or maybe the kinds of, if we had developed different states of samadhi in the past and in the near past, and so could do that again, easily in the present. So, by knowing sentient beings' lives and their rebirths, you know something about their karma, about their disposition, about, how you can lead them and guide them in a really good way. Okay, so here in the 8th one, he's remembering his own past lives. Okay. The 9th one, he's seeing sentient beings dying and being reborn. Okay, so here's what it says about the 9th one. So with the divine eye, so the divine eye is the ability to see things that are either far in distance or far in time. So with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, the Tathagata sees beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate. He understands how beings pass on according to their actions. Thus, these worldly beings who were these worthy, okay, these worthy beings who were ill conducted in body, speech, and mind, revilers of Aryas, wrong in their views, giving effect to wrong view in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death, have reappeared in a state of deprivation, in a bad destination, in perdition, even in hell. Okay, so he can see, what actions people did in this life and where they're getting reborn. So that was for the ones who didn't keep very good ethical conduct. But he also sees, but these worthy beings who were well conducted in body, speech, and mind, not revilers of Aryas, right in their views, giving effect to the right view in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death, they have reappeared in a good destination, even in the heavenly world. Okay, so the Buddha can see, what kind of karma people have when they die, which of the many karmic seeds in their mind stream are ripening, right now, and where that sentient being will be reborn in their very next life. Yeah. Okay. So this gives the Buddha an amazing ability to be able to guide people and to, bring forth different manifestations or refer them to different people to study with or go to different places or whatever. Yeah, because they say that if you form karmic connections with certain Dharma teachers in this life, and then make prayers to be able to meet them in future lives, then that kind of thing comes about. And if the teacher has those kind of super knowledges and can see that, then they can look for these students that they have karmic connections with. Okay, so that was number 9. Now number 10. By realizing for himself with direct knowledge, the Tathagata here and now enters upon and abides in the liberation of mind and the liberation by wisdom that are unpolluted with the destruction of the pollutants. Okay, so the 8th one, the 9th one, these are 2 of the 5 super knowledges. There are also things that the Buddha saw on the eve of his enlightenment when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree. Those 2 were some of the realizations he had. The 10th one, okay, also happened under the Bodhi tree. Yeah, and here the Buddha knew what his own spiritual attainments were. But in describing the 10 powers, okay, it says that this power knows that why the Shravakas and solitary realizers have eliminated the afflictive obscurations, the Buddhas have eliminated also the cognitive obscurations. Okay, and so they say that people can, with these super knowledges, can only know the spiritual levels of people who are at their same level or at inferior levels. So they can't know what stage of the path. If you're a first ground bodhisattva, you can tell all the ordinary beings, but you can't tell who's on the second ground and the third ground, like that. Okay, so a fully awakened Buddha knows all the realizations of each and every sentient being. So that's certainly going to be helpful in terms of guiding them. He isn't fooled by our efforts to impress him, and knows our strengths and weaknesses and who has attained the awakening of which one of the three vehicles. Okay, so if our teacher happens to be a Buddha, and we're trying to put on airs and pretend to be some fantastic, highly realized disciple, that's not going to go very far with the teacher. They're going to kind of shake their head and say, "Oh dear, this one thinks he's highly realized, and that shows me how he doesn't have any realization." Okay, so that's the 10th one. So these 10, are spoken of in the Pali Sutras. What's the name of the sutra? Okay. I don't see the name of the sutra. They also are described in the Prajnaparamita Sutra and in the Ornament of Clear Realizations, which is a commentary on the Prajnaparamita Sutra. Okay. And in the Sublime Continuum, Uttara Tantra, they're described there. What? In the Sutra of the 10, these 10 powers, and the Sutra of the 10 grounds. Okay. Pardon? I have it on page 42. Why didn't I see it? Maybe. Oh, yes, the Sutra on the 10 grounds, the Sublime Continuum, the Greater Discourse on the Lion's Roar in the Pali Canon, and then in the Pali commentaries, the Abbey Dharma book, the Book of Analysis. Okay. So, questions or comments on this? Do you feel a little bit inspired that it's possible to know all these kinds of things and how that might influence your mind and how you acted and how you lived your life? Questions? This is the time. Australia.
Yeah, there's a couple online that would like to ask a question, Venerable.
Sure.
Mickey, go ahead and unmute, Mickey.
Good afternoon, good evening, Venerable. I just want to ask on the number 7, is that bit about attachment to the meditative absorption and liberation. How do you know that you are attached to the meditative state or practice?
How do you know you're attached to meditative states? You enjoy doing them, and you don't do the meditations that involve analysis. You just prefer to stay in states of concentration because it feels so good. Yeah. So if you're doing that, then It shows you're attached to them. Okay. And there were other questions?
Yeah. Rashika, go ahead and unmute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I just have one kind of question. I feel like a lot of times people focus on, like you were talking about, how the Buddha can teach you how to enter certain meditative states, how to maintain, and how to come out of it. I'm wondering, is it before someone should take on learning how to enter, would it be wise to learn how to come out? Because my mind is kind of thinking it's like when you're trying to teach a kid how to ride a bike, you need to teach them how to pump the brakes before they get on the bike, where it could be some real trouble. I can just see someone come out with like a delusive mind, possibly losing their mind if they don't know how to reemerge in the proper way. So I wonder if the correct thought would be, okay, I'm going to learn about these states, learn how to safely reemerge, and then I can worry about entering and maintaining. Is that the right train of thought?
Okay. I think probably before you engage in the practice, it's good to learn how to enter, how to abide, and how to leave, so that you have a general awareness of the whole thing. Yeah. So like learning to ride a bike, you can teach them how to pump the brake, but if they don't have the idea of how the pedals work, then they aren't going to understand what the brake does either. Okay.
Perfect. Got it.
I was interested when you were talking about how the Buddha has the wisdom to guide you to the teachers.
Guide you to different teachers.
Guide you to the different teachers based on what your needs are. Is it also important to also ask the Buddha? Like like the Buddha isn't just guiding you necessarily. Is there also a responsibility on my part to ask?
Yeah. No, we don't know who's a Buddha and who's not, but
Generally, like
just to ask a teacher.
Or to be open to, like, be looking for guide. I don't know. I guess it seemed, I'm seeing if it's a reciprocal thing or if there's some omnipresence that's.
No, there has to be something from our side, some receptivity. Yeah, because otherwise, if the Buddha or our Dharma teacher gives some guidance, if we aren't receptive, it's in one ear and out the other. So we have to have some interest and receptivity and sincerity and eagerness in our practice.
Yeah, it sounds actually very obvious now.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's not the case that the Buddha's going to come tap you on the shoulder and say, you should go study with so-and-so. No. But I can say for myself that some of my teachers have sent me to study with other teachers. Yeah. And I don't think it was just to get rid of me. Yeah, but because when I went and studied with those other teachers, I had a very, very good experience. And then sometimes those teachers sent me to, recommended that I ask for teachings from somebody else too. Okay, let's dedicate then. Another question.
Venerable, we have another question online.
Sure.
Rashika?
Oh, sorry. It wasn't really a question. It's just kind of a funny statement. You're right. Dinosaurs are still hot on the market because there was this family that was on the corner, I think, asking for assistance. And I stopped to help them. And I found out that it was two little boys and a younger girl. And I found out that it was one of the little boys' birthday. So I went to like Party City, got him like a happy birthday balloon. And I got him like a little dinosaur, like a T-Rex, to hold the balloon down. And he just went ballistic. And I mean, it crosses cultures because I believe there were minutes, but he automatically started attacking his little brother with the dinosaur. So they're still hot on the market, just to let you know.
Good. Thank you. We've clarified that doubt. Okay.